Oh, good. We're live. So, hey guys, if you're looking down and your heart's feeling empty, come over laugh with us. I'm Shadow Soul 720. So, let's talk today about life. Specifically, as you can see up here, think smart. And how to think smart, how to be better. So, there's been a few realizations today. I've talked about my goals, my dreams, ambitions, and things, none of which you guys probably have heard of. And that's okay. Some ways that I want to address how to think smarter, or just smart in general, how to be the smarterest, it doesn't really matter, even if English grammar people tell you otherwise, is to follow your dreams, do what you want to do. Now, there's certain ways that we get lost in wanting to do what we want to do and thinking how we want to think. And what I mean by that is when we're pursuing our goals, there's definitely things and obstacles that stand in the way of that, such as a big one for a lot of people is confidence and motivation. I tie those things together because a lot of the time they can be linked. I don't have statistics on it, but you know, just if you want to take my word for it, that's fine. If not, that's okay. Prove my theory or disprove it. Now, most importantly, when we get stuck wanting to pursue something, a lot of the time we don't know how to go about it, right? Or we might be doing almost nothing with our lives and we want to do something. Or we feel like we're just existing and that's fine for the moment, right? Isn't it? I don't know. But then we get worried about our futures because we're not really doing a lot. Potentially. Maybe this isn't the case for everyone. Probably isn't. But that's just what we're talking about today. So, if you get into a space where you feel like nothing's really happening, and you want to get out of that, you might have a lot of people around you, potentially, you know, if there's people around you, which normally there is, even if you don't expect it, saying to you something like, well, it's because of this that you're a failure, or like, you're not succeeding because, I don't know, you get up too late, or you don't get enough sleep, or you get too much sleep, or, you know, you're not eating the right foods. You are eating the right foods. And not normally people say that one, actually, but the reason I say that is because a lot of people have opinions on, like, what isn't good food, right? People are like, this is good food because it's got protein, this isn't good food, meat is good, meat is not good, you know? There's varying opinions on things, like, you're not supposed to get too much sleep or too little sleep, and what that is normally differs from person to person, right, and based on their preferences and what they think. Whereas a lot of people will just give advice and say, that's not the same thing I do, you're not getting the same amount, or you're getting, you know, you're doing something differently, so maybe that's the problem. Which isn't necessarily true. You guys can do what you feel works for you, and if that works, you'll know it, right? If a friend comes up to you and they say, hey, maybe I can see that you're kind of depressed or sad or something, and maybe you've just got to get out there and start doing things. That's good. That's, you know, that's fine advice, I guess. Like, they're trying to be honest with you and upfront and saying, hey, maybe the reason you feel shitty is because there's not enough going on. Now, if they're saying it like that and they're not saying, hey, you're shit, go get a job, that's an awful person, right? Well, it's not awful, but they're not considering the other person's feelings enough. And they're not showing a lot of respect by doing that. Or maybe they think they are because they're being so blunt, but it's really just hurtful to the other person, which isn't respectful at all, right? Like, it's not very good. And the issue I have with both types of feedback, strangely enough, is that when people say, you know, well, maybe it's because you're not eating right, or maybe it's because you're not getting so much sleep. That's fine, but you're also not going that extra in there. So if the person does admit something like, yeah, okay, well, maybe it is my sleep, or maybe it is my food, then, you know, the other person's like, yeah, okay, we'll fix that. They're not providing how you should fix that. And no one really normally has the answers, right? Everyone's lifestyle is different, so they're just kind of spewing in their 2 cents, being like, well, maybe it's this, so I'm going to walk away now. I tried to help. And that's fine. You know, you can't expect someone to do everything. But the biggest issue is if we want to think smarter, guys, about our goals in life, where we want to be, what we want to do, we have to think about how to fix our issues, right? But we have to think about it in depth. So if someone says to us, hey, you're not eating enough, you're not sleeping enough or something potentially, and you're like, yeah, okay, well maybe it is that, then you guys have to actually think about what it is you need to change. You need to go that extra step and say, hey, how are we going to fix it? And that's something you should be questioning a lot. You always want to question yourself, and you always want to reflect, is what I'm trying to get to. And not just we discovered the problem, but we want to fix the problem. So if we're talking about the example of not eating enough or not eating the right foods, we talk about, okay, what do you think the issue is? What foods do you think I'm not eating enough of? What food do you think I am eating enough of? Do you feel like we could switch it up? And then when you get to a point of like, you know, what foods you maybe should and shouldn't be having, like say you want more protein, then you need to talk about you know, what sort of protein or how you're going to get it. So are you going to start eating eggs, for example, right? And if so, how are you going to start obtaining these eggs? Like that sounds very strange out of context, I know, but it is relevant. It is relevant. Just don't mind me for a quick moment. I just want to shrink the chat a little bit. There we go. Cool. Just so it's a little bit out of the way. And I will get to those comments at some point, but they're also thinking points for you guys, you know? So have a look at the comments, see if they're interesting. Hi, by the way. Yeah. So the best way to think smarter is by addressing questions directly and confronting whatever issues you have. And normally the best way to do this is by confronting issues immediately as they arise. So, say you have taxes due or something, right? Your income hasn't come in, or there's just a stressful situation with like a friend or family member, and or maybe that's a little different, but say there's something immediate you need to do, right? You need to go to the doctors for a reason, dentist, etc. You want to book that immediately. You don't want to wait till later and be like, oh, I'm a little nervous, a little stressed. You want to book it. You want to get onto it. You can always cancel things, right? You can always change things last minute if you need to. Generally. So, it's about following up. It's about being not so afraid and not so stressed, but trying to get your life back on track by doing things when you need to do them and as they arise. So, for example, if I had a problem with like a friend saying that I look like shit, that's gonna be like, that hurt. But you also want to address that in the moment and say to them something like, I don't know if I'd quite address it that way. Maybe we could discuss a different form of reasoning. You know, that's probably not how you're gonna address the situation, guys. But that was just what I could pull off the top of my head. So the idea is that I'd confront that directly, right? Confronting not being like one-sided confrontation, but just getting in there immediately, so that I don't walk away later and be like, oh, did they really think I looked like shit? Like that's pretty bad. And then I'm going to be thinking about that for a while and like have a negative impact towards that person. Be like, no, I don't know. See, to think smarter, we also just have to act in the moment, and we have to act on instinct. Like children are a great example of this, because they kind of just say what comes to mind immediately, which, you know, yeah, sure, it can get them into a bit of trouble. But most importantly, out of everything, normally it helps. Especially when you've got people around you that are trying to do the same and help you learn and help themselves learn. And they are supportive. So, you know, a kid, if they see an adult that's upset, depressed or something, they'll just be like, why are you letting that upset you? Like, why are you getting upset over this and this? And the adult will be like, yeah, I don't know. And then they'll talk about it for a bit, and then suddenly they're like, wow, this child has super huge knowledge and like they're so wise, but in reality they just question something, confronted it straight away, which is really good. It's really good. And I think that's something we can all kind of strive towards, just confronting things straight up. And then, I mean, an example of how I'm not doing this right now is looking at these comments over here, which, like I said, I will address. Ooh, face cam's faded. Towards the end somewhere, I think. But, yeah. Otherwise I'm going to lose my train of thought just a tad. It's so hard to keep a train of thought for me. Let me know if you guys find it hard to keep a train of thought, and if so, I want you to, directly get that problem and think, why is it? Do you stress about not having the time to get to all the answers? If so, I advise just taking a step back. Is it you get stressed out with public speaking? Because I can understand that. Best way is probably just to continually do it a lot, repetition, and then it'll come to you, but also you need to just not feel nervous, because nothing in life is really worth getting stressed about. Stress can be helpful at times to help us move on with our day and do process activities, but we also have to confront it immediately, like I've said. Otherwise, stress is just weighing us down, really. Instead of being like, okay, best way I can example stress right now is, imagine you're in like a 100-meter sprint or something, right? Like you're getting ready to go, and then the starting pistol goes off or whatever, and it goes bang. If someone deals with stress well, they're going to confront that immediately. They're going to be like, what does that mean? Oh, I know what it means. It means start. They're going to run, right? And they're going to keep going towards pursuing their next goal. If you hear the starting pistol and you think, that's maybe not something to worry about, right? That's kind of putting it to the back of your mind, and that's just going to lag you behind in the race. If you're the other person who says, I don't know what that means and I want to find out, that's okay too, right? Because that's not going to lag you behind. You don't even know the race is occurring at this point, which is fine. That's completely fine. But you're understanding that the next time you go into a race, you're going to be able to, because you're finding out in that moment, I have an issue. How do I deal with it? What is it? It's the gun. What does the gun mean? Race is happening. Okay, I understand. You gain knowledge so that in the next time something like that happens, you'll know what to do. And then when the next time does occur, hopefully you'll be that person that's like, okay, I'm stressed. I get it. The gun went off. I know what to do. Gonna do it. And that's exactly how it works, I think. That's how I like to give an example, at least. But if we're back here, kind of waiting on what's going to happen, I don't really know. And kind of being like, it probably doesn't matter. It's probably fine. If you're the person in a horror movie where there's someone with an axe and you're like, did I hear a creak? I don't know. I'm going to second guess it. Nah. I probably didn't hear a creak at all. Like, you're just going to die in that horror movie, And maybe that's because you deal with stress in a different way. But dealing with stress is going to help us think a lot better. I like to think. Because otherwise we're just going to have all these things that clog up, right? Like the previous stress is going to clog up on the other ones. It kind of gets to the point where you start your day and you're like, oh, I've got to, there's this whole thing like calling the doctors, and then my little brother's sick, and I don't know, I've got to race around to get Timmy to the vet, and then like before then I still have to try and get my driver's license, and I have to study up, and you have all these problems, and then suddenly you've got nothing left in your day, and then you're like, there's too many problems, I don't want to deal with it, I do something else, and then the next day you have all these problems plus more. Where someone that confronts that stress kind of just gets in there, does what they need to do, and yeah, it's stressful and unpleasant, but for a short period, so they can enjoy the rest of their time, right? And so they can keep tackling the life's daily challenges, one after the other, which is very useful. And that's kind of how we keep on top of everything, and then that gives us the ability to have more thought and be able to have the time and patience needed to potentially think about our issues, reflect on things, improve for the next time. And that's how we think smart, right? How to be better. I couldn't think of anything else as a title because it's just so broad and it's just such a basic, like, I say basic human thing, but really there's a lot of parts that you have to break down in order to get the most successful answers, and it's not often that I have this level of thinking. If I'm being honest, I just had to stream randomly right now just to kind of even get this happening. But enough about me and my issues right now. I want to focus more on you guys, and if you guys have any issues that you're going through, let me know, and I'll give you some advice if I can, because we can only do what we can in life, right? We live and learn, we try what we do. But that's probably a pretty good point, actually, to even stop on, but I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's see.